Good morning, everyone. I hope you guys are all having a blessed day. Mine's going pretty good. Hey, I read the book of Hebrews last week, and there's a couple of things that I came up with out of Hebrews chapter 4, and it's some advice on practical living. And Hebrews 4:4 says, "Marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled. But whoremongers and adulterers God will judge." People, listen, as born-again believers, you cannot be involved in sex outside of marriage. You can't do it. God will never bless that union. In fact, He will curse that union. And, when I was single, I got involved several times with sex outside of marriage, and every time I did, it wound up costing me dearly. So that's one thing you cannot do. God will not bless that union. And here's the worst thing about it. If you're in a relationship and you're living with somebody or even involved with somebody sexually, if you're doing that and they're not the person you plan on spending the rest of your life with, if the right person comes along, they're just going to go right on by because you're involved with the wrong person. So anyway, remember that. Verse 5 says, "Let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have. For He has said, I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee." People, it's very important that we are content in life. Whether we have a lot, whether we have little, we're to be content with exactly where we're at. I mean, Paul was in chains, sometimes in the bottom of a dungeon, and he said, "I've learned to be content with no matter what's going on in my life." People, when you get down to where all you have left is God, God is always enough. Verse 6 says, "So we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear what man can do to me." People, America is in big trouble. Big trouble. Persecution is coming. There's no doubt about it. Persecution like we have never seen is right at our doorstep. We've already seen the beginnings of it with this pandemic. You know what? Christians don't need a friendly government to survive. We don't. We do not need a friendly government to survive. You know that in the Netherlands, there was a pastor that was just arrested the other day because he quoted from the Bible in one of his sermons that homosexual marriage was wrong. He quoted that in one of his sermons, and he was arrested for it, and he is in jail today because of it. In England, another pastor was arrested for talking about the LGBT agenda. That is illegal to talk about. It's considered hate speech in England. And then I just saw on the Dave Hodges show this morning. Dave Hodges, his show is called Common Sense. And he just reported this morning that in Canada, they just signed into law that there will be no in-attendance church services throughout the entire nation of Canada. Church in Canada is now illegal. People, you don't think persecution's coming? It's already here. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse. It's never going to get better. We are living in the end times. It says, "Remember them that have rule over you, who have spoken unto you the word of God, whose faith follows, considering the end of their conversation." What that's saying is, look back at some of the church leaders and how their lives went. You know, you look back at the faithful Christians of old, their governments were hounding them, persecuting, killing them. Jesus himself went about the task of saving the world under the Romans. Didn't bother him a bit. He let the Romans do their thing. He went about doing his thing. Paul traveled almost all of the known world at that time, establishing churches, and all the time he was doing that, spreading the gospel, He was fighting persecutions against the Jews of his day, the Jewish leaders. They were trying to kill him. Against these pagan men that made gods out of silver. There were men that would make gods out of silver, sell them as a god, and Paul would say, that's nothing but an object. The true God is in heaven. They tried to have him killed. I mean, Paul traveled about with hostile governments. He had the pagans, the Jewish leaders, and the Romans to contend with, and he just went about doing his business. Christians do not need a friendly government to thrive. And it's just like in Canada. The minute they outlaw churches, people will go underground, just like they've done in China and Korea for years. And then number 8, it says, Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forever. People, let me tell you something. I love that about God. I love that about God, that He is the same today, yesterday, and forever. God does not change. He's the same every day. And this is what I love about that. What if God was like you and me? What if His attitude changed every 20 minutes? I mean, what if you committed a sin on a day that God was just having a bad day? Would He just reach down and pound you on the head and squash you? No. God doesn't have bad days. People, listen. Persecution's coming. It's absolutely coming. Live your life in a way that honors God. Live your life exactly the way you're supposed to be living it. Be about the Lord's work, because persecution is coming, and people, I am absolutely convinced that the rapture is upon us. The end times are upon us. Be about the Lord's work. Be ready in your life. If He comes, you want to be ready to lift up your head and smile and say, Lord, I'm ready. Because everybody else, when He comes, everybody else is going to be turning around, running in the opposite direction, trying to get away from Him. Anyway, I just want to give you something to think about. Heaven or hell, you choose. Just remember, once you take your last breath, it's a done deal.